Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1171A, and today's date is January 6th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Manipulation Continues as the Entire Economy Falls Apart. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Tomorrow, Saturday, I'll be uploading an interview with John Williams. He breaks down the manipulation and how they do it. He talks about how the economy, well, it's not going to make it too much further, and we're going to see hyperinflation. So tomorrow, around 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that interview will be uploaded. If you're on the alert email system, I'll send you an email. If not, just go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. You'll see the video there. Or you can come over to the X22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video there. Or you can go to newssentinel.com. Same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, and you can play the video there. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. So today on the market, we see that the Dow almost hit 20,000 points. Boy, are they playing this one out. They are really putting on a production of, wow, are we going to hit 20,000 points? Will Obama do it? And they're really pushing this hard to make everyone stare at the stock market. This is why they're doing this. This is a performance. Because we can see right now, the numbers that they're putting out today are completely ridiculous. They're manipulated, and they're trying to convince everyone still that everything is great. Now, yes, the unemployment numbers went up to 4.7%, but they're still looking at it saying, hey, 4.7%, pretty darn good. We're at full employment here. Times are good. And we see right now that the hard data, it is coming in. And guess what? It's not looking good whatsoever. Actually, out in England, we can see that the month of December, well, it wasn't too good for retail there. And what we're seeing coming out of the BDO of the European Commission showed that retail sales slowed in December. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't December like one of the biggest shopping holidays ever? Isn't this where retail stores, online businesses make all their money to carry them through the rest of the year? But what we're seeing right now is that this holiday season in December was worse than last holiday season. And retail sales fell by 0.1% year on year. Now, we're seeing the same thing here in the United States. Very interesting, because they've been telling us that everything's fantastic. Retail's incredible. We know stores are already closing, and there's a lot more that are going to close. And restaurants, guess what? Traffic is drying up, and sales are declining. Look at Ruby Tuesdays. Sales declined by 4.1%. When we look at the Gap, Banana Republic, sales are down 7% and 5.3%. What we're seeing right now is a complete disaster. Stores, online sales, guess what? They have gone nowhere. Actually, they're contracting. And this is a race against time right now because the central bankers, the elite, they know this. The entire system's imploding on itself. Now, of course, the job numbers came out. They only moved up about 156,000 jobs, where that's how many new jobs they created. But something very interesting here, they revised a lot of the numbers. They did a revision in October, a revision in November. And what they really did was they drove the numbers up a little bit to show that, look, we actually hit 156,000. They were actually expecting 178,000, but they did whatever they possibly could to try to get the numbers higher. Now, when we look at this, we see the revision in November went from 178,000 to 204,000. October was revised down from 142 to 135 for a net revision of the past 2 months of 19,000 additional jobs, which they added in to right now to show that, hey, we came pretty close. And that's why unemployment moved down to 4.7, because it wasn't enough. But still, it's under 5% full employment. The only problem is more people fell off of the labor force. The BLS announced that the total number of people not in the labor force grew once more, rising by 18,000 in December and a whopping 841,000 in the past 3 months. This is an all-time new high of 95.102 million Americans no longer in the workforce. So, how are they telling us that everything is fine? Well, of course, they say, well, these people aren't looking for jobs. They don't want jobs. Really? 95 million or so people don't want to work. And remember how they come up with this number. If you haven't been on an interview in 4 weeks, guess what? You're just not counted anymore. You don't want a job. You can be sending out your resume, but you decided, since nobody's calling you back for an interview, that you don't want a job. Well, actually, it's the opposite. People who are sending out thousands and thousands of resumes, who are not getting any answer back, well, they want the job. There's just none out there. So where are all these jobs that they're talking about? How great everything is? Well, what are we seeing? Well, healthcare added jobs, about 70,000. We see that employment in the food services and drinking places, well, they trended up by 30,000, even though we see traffic drying up in restaurants, sales declining in restaurants. Well, that's a very strange number right off the bat. We see that the government added around 12,000 jobs, and construction jobs, well, they declined by 3,000, and manufacturing jobs also declined by 40 or so thousand. And what we're seeing right now is that the jobs that are continually added, they're low-paying part-time jobs once again. And every time a person gets a low-paying part-time job, they are considered full-time. When they lose that job, depending on how many hours they work and what their dollar amount is, and it varies from state to state, when they get laid off, just like those people in Macy's, the majority of them can't apply for unemployment insurance because they didn't work enough hours and they didn't make enough money. So they were counted as a full-time job. They get laid off and they can't apply for the unemployment insurance. And they're not counted as a job that was lost because it was a part-time job. And you can see how this whole thing works. The whole thing is completely manipulated. And what's very interesting about all of this is that this is what they've been using since 1994. They changed the calculation. They changed the way everything is done because they knew that this was going to happen. And as we move forward throughout this period from 1994 and on, they had to continually change the calculation on how this was done. The only reason you do this is because you know the numbers aren't going to make sense if you keep the calculations the same, because it would show that we're in a bad recession right now. And of course, Obama doesn't want people to say that throughout his presidency, everything was no good. It was a recession, that we never recovered. But when everything is said and done, and the truth comes out, we're going to find out that we have been in a recession. We're heading towards a depression, a collapse. We see factory orders. Well, they plunged the most since August of 2014. November saw orders plunge by 2.4% month on month. And the biggest drop since August. This drop comes despite a 103% month on month rise in defense aircraft orders. And non-defense aircraft order crashed by 73.8%. I mean, this is horrific here. So the only thing that was keeping it up was the defense orders. Remove all of that. This is worse than ever. And when we look at this, we can see factory orders decline for the 23rd month of the last 25. What does that tell you? It tells you that things are a lot worse than what they're telling us. We're heading towards the end stage. And something very interesting about Fed Williams, where he said, listen, everyone, you might as well get used to sub 2% GDP or even lower. Meaning that the stimulus is not working, all of this is not working at all, and we should just get used to that the economy is never really going to recover fully. I mean, this is what they're saying. Even at full employment now, the wages aren't where they're supposed to be because people are working part-time. A lot of people aren't working at all. Manufacturing, factory orders, industrial production, all dead in the water here. Retail, store information, the data is coming in, and it's horrific. Stores are already closing. Does this really sound like a recovery? But don't worry, the Dow's approaching 20,000 points. That's what they're trying to get it to. And they're putting up this huge production, making it look really great, and everyone's going to go, hurrah, hurrah, when it hits 20,000 points. I think we saw this before. I mentioned it before, when the Dow hit 1,000. And guess what happened afterwards? It came crashing down. That's going to be the signal. When it hits 20,000 points, let's see if they can do it. I do believe they will. The whole thing is going to come crashing down. I mean, it got really, really close today. And we can see at this point that as we move forward and as Trump takes office, things are really going to accelerate. Things are going to completely fall apart. They're going to make it horrific for Trump because they have nothing else left. Too many people are pointing things out. Everyone's calling everyone out on everything. And we can see that the truth is nowhere to be found. And these economic numbers, well, we know it's a lie. And the truth is going to come out. And when the truth comes out, everything's going to rapidly fall apart. And it's going to happen very, very quickly. This is why you need to be prepared. You need your food, you need your water, you need weapons, you need gold, silver, you need cash on hand, medical supplies, toiletry. You need all of this. Because when this hits, we're going to see hyperinflation. Think about what's happening in the Middle East right now. They're losing control over there. The people are taking back their countries. Once they stop using the petrodollar, all those dollars float back to the United States. That means we have a lot more dollars in circulation. When there's a lot more dollars in circulation, the value of the dollar goes down. When the value of the dollar goes down, you need a lot more of those dollars to pay for goods, which means inflation, which means hyperinflation. And as more and more of these dollars flood back, it gets worse and worse and worse. And that's why you need physical metal to protect yourself. Because when this happens, the price of metals go up. And you need to protect what you've worked for. You need to be able to feed your family. It's going to be very difficult to go to the store and get food. I mean, think about it. 1 minute, the price of bread might be $5. 3 days later, it might be $37. 10 days later, it might be $87. How are you going to do it? It's going to be completely impossible. So get prepared for what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.